Hello and welcome to the Rhythm Changes podcast. I'm your host, Will Chernoff, and this episode is sponsored by Pearson Instruments. That's Brad Pearson's luthier and guitar tech business based in South Van, Marpole. He has worked on all my instruments, my acoustic guitar, my electric bass, my upright bass. He should work on yours too because he's great with the turnaround, he's very affordable, and he's a super nice guy. Awesome bass player too. If you ever get to hear him, go to pearsoninstruments.ca to learn more about Brad and what he does. That's pearsoninstruments.ca to get your string instruments sounding and feeling great.
My friend, he's like sitting next to me and he's kind of silent and I'm like, what's going on? And he looks at me and he goes, this is the first of last before I move away. This is the last time we'll be able to be in this group of people in our lives.
All right. Well, our Jazz at the Vault coverage continues even here in March because our guest here also played at those festivities back in February. I think this is a great example of my favorite kind of episode where there's not necessarily an album release campaign that we're promoting. There's just a whole bunch of awesome people to talk about, friends to share stories about, and I'm really looking forward to bringing this conversation to you. So one of my favorite little local music conversations that I've had in recent memory, up next. Our guest today is a vocalist who recently performed at Jazz at the Vault and is performing again very, very soon at Frankie's on March 12th with what is currently her regular band of Dean Thiessen on piano, Wynston Minckler on bass, and Seth Kitamura on drums. Very excited to learn more about what she's been playing with this band over the last couple of months. Another band called Winner Winner, other projects she might have, maybe some trip to Europe, maybe some stories from that, and this awesome crew of people that she's been surrounded with in our community. So please welcome to the Rhythm Changes podcast, Teresa Marie.
Hey. Wow, I can't believe you remembered all that. I would have just like blanked out and been like, yeah, she's playing with her band. There's someone on the bass.
Well, what I did whiff on was the day of the week because I always drop episodes on Wednesdays. And if I took my time to think about it, I could have realized that March 12th was a Sunday. But I did not think of that in the moment, so you caught me on that.
That's okay. That was pretty good.
Yeah. Well, it's cool that you can bring a band out a bunch of different times because you did your set at Jazz at the Vault with them, and unfortunately this year I missed the entire Jazz at the Vault weekend because I really was trying to put together a gig in Nanaimo, and that was the one weekend I could do it. So I left town all weekend. I didn't get to hear you. How was it?
It was so crazy. Turns out when you listen to 8 hours of music a day, and when you're not listening to the 8 hours of music, you are talking to people, catching up with people. It's like a whole endeavor. Like I was like, oh my gosh, I need like another weekend to relax from this weekend. But it was so much fun. And there was oh my gosh, I watched Mark Turner with
Miki Yamanaka, right?
Yeah, Miki Yamanaka, and that was what's the word? Transcendental. It was like I was like transcending. Wow. I was like, what is happening?
What did it sound like? Like that it was Quartet, right? With Mark Turner leading on sax. Yeah.
Okay, I've never heard Mark Turner before. Live. I mean, I don't think a lot of people have, and so quiet. Such a quiet saxophone player, but so fantastic. It was just very, I'd say very dense. But Miki has so much joy and so much I don't know, when she was talking to the audience, it was just so much fun. And she was at one point she was like, okay, this is our last song, have a nice life. And then she just sat down and started playing and everyone was just like, what?
Wait, what?
But that was super, super cool. And Jesse Davis, Seamus Blake, all the big cats were out there. It was so much fun to just, peek your head in and watch some fantastic New York players, as well as obviously fantastic Canadian players as well. I got the John Lee set.
So you were there for both days?
I was there for both days, yeah. All day. John Lee set was fantastic too. Oh my gosh. Really, really cool. And who else did I see that was I saw the Nightcrawlers, and that was really cool. And obviously I tried my best to see all the Infidels people as well, because want to support the other people that Tim's hired. And that was so magic. You know, Connor did his cordless sax trio, and that was really cool, especially because I thought it was really cool because, you know, Connor's been out of town. It was Carl DeYoung and Raph and obviously Connor, and all three of them have kind of been like kind of in and out of the scene. Like Carl has been taking a bit of a break because he had some things going on with his arms for the drums, and I know he like dropped out of school for a bit. So it was cool to like, and then like obviously Raph, for those at home who don't know, he has gone to McGill and he's a fantastic bass player, but a lot of people are like, that Raph guy, I see him around, but I see his name around, but I like, who is he? Like, and I'm like, he's born in Vancouver, like he's born here. That's why he plays with all the young cats. But he went to school in McGill, and that's why like he's kind of like doing some gigs. But now he's here for a while now. I think he dropped out of McGill and he's hanging out in Vancouver. So it was really cool to see like these three young cats who like, you know, kind of been in and out of the scene and like together at this big festival. I was like, that's kind of special, I think.
Yeah. I'm not going to tell the whole story because there's some more personal elements to it. But what I will say, and I say this not to take credit, but just because I witnessed tremendous growth here, was I passed the upright bass into Raph's hands for the first time in his life. In 2014, I think. You
blessed unto him. Blessed unto him.
Well, he did all the work. So I just happened to be in a place where I got to see him when he was in, I don't know, grade 8, 9, 10 or whatever it was. But then it's been so cool to be a fan of his over the ensuing years and going to McGill and coming back. I think very highly of him.
He's the best, and he's such a good hang. This is actually just going to be a fan club about Raph Augustin.
Sure.
But yeah, and then there was Alvin Brendan. He did his trio. They're so cool. I've never seen samples used like that before.
With
like
Ben Millman and with Trent, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Did you hear their Frankie's Late Show? We'll talk about the Frankie's Late Show in a second too, I'm sure. Did you go to that one?
I didn't get a chance to.
Okay, yeah. Well, that was that. Yeah.
Yeah, it was amazing. That was my first time watching them, and it was so well done, like so tight, and like all of them like were like just looked stoked to be there, which I feel like is the most important thing.
Yeah, it is. It sounds so simple, but it's easy to lose sight of that because there's all these other things going on that we have to think about, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then Faven Kadani did her tribute to Woody Shaw, but also a mix of some of her tunes as well. It was really cool. I don't know if you saw the pictures. She brought out this like big
to sit on, right?
Pillow to sit on. It was really cool. And just like, yeah, that music was also like, I think one of the highlights of my weekend as well. Like, so cool. I love when it gets a little bit, I don't know, a little bit hairy, you know, a little bit crazy. And I feel like they did that, and it was always such a joy to watch her and Gordy play together, and that whole band, obviously. Ben, Cole Woodland, Todd Stewart, Gordy Lee, and obviously Faven. But that whole band was freaking fantastic. Holy cow.
Yeah. And one of my highlights is that now with you here in New West, I have finally completed the Infidels at Jazz at the Vault challenge, and
nice.
I have published at least one thing about all four of you, about Faven, Connor, Alvin, and yourself. So
nice.
There you go. I finally got there.
You collected them all.
I collected all four. Yeah. And I felt a little bad about Connor because I did an article with him, and it ended up being an awesome article that he shared, and I got notifications that like his family members were sharing it and stuff, so that was very cute. But I talked to him for the interview because even when I do a written article interview, it's still just me transcribing like a Zoom call that I have with somebody. I just don't worry about the audio or anything because I know I'm just going to be pulling quotes. But I talked to him like less than 48 hours after he got back, and I was asking him stuff like, do you feel like there's a lot more going on now than when you were back? Because everybody seems to be talking about how there's so much going on. He's like, I don't know, man. I've been back for 2 days. But he was like, very good about it.
He was like, I don't know where I am. What's happening?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's super sweet. I love that guy. But yeah, that whole weekend was very intense, but like very rewarding. Absolutely.
So did it just so happen that if you think about that group of 4 band leaders, including yourself, and maybe if you think about Shruti as well, who I recorded with just before you, and she's on the episode that came out before your episode here. If you think about that group of people, there's different kind of entry points and different years at the CAP program that you would have been. But is that a pretty decent cross section of like who you went to school with and who you've known over the last 5 years?
Absolutely. For sure. I mean, yeah, Faven was only the year below me, and we actually ended up graduating together. Shruti was in my year, but she graduated ahead of me because I stayed back a year. Same thing. Connor, I think graduated the same year I did. So
yeah,
4 of us graduated together. Alvin graduated
a little bit before.
Maybe same year as Shruti, actually.
Yeah,
COVID
something like
year.
that. But
COVID
you all spent a lot of time, like at
Absolutely.
least 1 or 2 years of seeing each other very often, right?
Oh, of course, yeah. Yeah, we all know each other, I feel like, quite well. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's true.
On the whole, your experience at CAP, you come out of it with all these friends. Pretty positive, if you think about it.
I think a mixed bag.
Oh, for sure.
Definitely, I am so, so grateful. The more people I meet from out of town that come into the music scene here, and they're like, I don't know where anyone, and I'm like, I'm so blessed to know like a variety of bass players, drummers, horn players, anyone, like more than one person who I would be stoked to be on the bandstand with and would hire again. You know what I mean? Like, and that's only because I came from the community of CAP, and I met so many of them there, and there are like a lot of like stand-up musicians at CAP. So yeah, I feel like that is definitely a big pro.
Yeah.
Is the community that's happening, and more community that's happening because of like the renaissance of gigs that's happening right now as well. Seeing people and catching up, and that's such a big part of building community, is going out and seeing shows, right? And like seeing people more than once and jamming, and
Yeah, and you think about like your current band, right? Like Dean and Wynston and Seth, those would be people who you would have met there too.
Not necessarily. I didn't go to school with Wynston or Dean, actually.
They come from the same community, though.
It's true. That's true, actually. How did I actually start talking to Dean and Wynston? I joke with Seth about this all the time. I actually said this on the Infidel stage. I was like, Wynston and Dean, they're not up and coming. It says it on the thing. They're not up and coming. They're pro musicians. But Seth, he's still on the up. Yeah. It's me and him. But I kind of love that my band is a bit of a mix of like, Seth is one of my dear friends, and I've played with him as a drummer more than I've played with any other drummer in this town. And I think it's kind of cool. It's like, it's a mix of like young cats, not that the other 2 are old, they're not old, but they're 2 young cats from CAP, and then these 2 like older pros that are super sweet and amazing. But yeah, you're right, I did kind of meet them because they're in the CAP community. I met Wynston doing a jam at his he has a little studio thing, and Todd was like, do you want to jam with Wynston Minckler? And I was like, who is that guy? No, I was like, oh my gosh, yeah, I guess. And we had this little jam, and then kind of became friends through that. With Dean, I think I've just seen him at shows around and listened to him once, and I was like, wow, that his piano playing is so tasteful and so beautiful, and I was like, I want that.
Yeah.
Give me that on my bandstand.
That's somebody who was there when I was up at CAP. I wasn't there very long. I was there for a year myself, but definitely you're talking about taking friends away from it. Like that's that's what I took away from it for sure, even from
Mhm.
just kind of the one formal year, but it's all the people who I met along the way and the people who I already knew, but who I came in there and then I got to spend so much more time around and get to know better. Like
Mhm.
even not just meeting cold new people, but just the opportunity to spend all that time together was, even in the 1 year for me, was so huge, and it still lasts to this day 10 years later. So I mean, yeah, that's what I got out of it for sure. It sounds like you too.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, my best friend, for those at home who don't know, my best friend's Ben Millman. We lived together. We met at Cab, and we met, oh my gosh, he was one of the only people I knew who lived in Vancouver. I didn't drive, and he drove, and I was like, I am begging you, sir. I was like, we're going the same way. Like, I can meet you in Kerrisdale. Will you please give me a ride to Cap on those mornings that we have 8 a.m. your training?
Yeah.
And he was like, good guy he is. He's like, absolutely. And the first time I get in his car, we get stuck in some of the worst traffic I've ever seen for an hour. And I'm stuck for an hour in this car with this basic stranger. Like, well, obviously we're in the same program, but, and something changed in that car from then on. When we became like, we realized like how dope the other person was, and we became absolute best friends. And yeah, that was in first year, so we've been friends for a while now.
Yeah, and you were really young at the time too, so you met somebody like that at a younger age. That's huge. That's really fortunate.
We were, I mean, it must have been 18. Whoa.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah, that's something I've told a few times when I've talked about why the program didn't work for me. Was like, if I waited another couple of years, I think I would have managed it better. But I showed up when I was 17 and it just didn't work.
I completely agree with that. I was the same. I was like 17 when I entered or I must have been
something like that.
17, 18. You're like basically a child, and you enter this program, and you go through all the classes and you pass them, but you don't get anything out of them because you're like, you're dumb and you're 18 and you're focusing on, I don't know, other things. And, I was like super mentally like not there too. And I definitely wish I took a gap year as well.
Mm-hmm.
To all those homies listening, think of going to Cap and you want to take a gap year.
Consider it, hey?
Consider it. It's, take a year to just go to jams and take private lessons. And
you're not going to be at a disadvantage for having taken that year, right?
No, and like, I feel like if you took a year to just listen to jazz, like, and discover what you like, I feel like that would put you at so much more of an advantage as well. And ground yourself after high school, that crazy whirlwind of high school.
Yeah. So speaking of crazy whirlwind of high school, we talked about the people you got to know up at Cap and the people that the program left you with. And these are your bandmates now. They were your peers at Jazz at the Bolt. They're all the people who are in your life right now. But something brought you there when you were around 18 and put you in that car with Ben Millman and enticed you to go there. So what happened on the way there? What brought you there? What was your experience like before there and going into it?
Like in high school, you mean? Like basically, like what brought me to jazz, kind of?
Yeah.
It's interesting. Actually, I went to Point Grey Secondary. Do you know Brent Taylor? Some people do and some people don't. Oh, cool.
Yeah, he used to, I think he used to either play or direct or both, but I crossed paths with him because, here's my Cap in the car story. So one of my best friends is Madeline Elkins, who you're playing with in your band called Winner Winner, which we'll talk about in several minutes, I'm sure. And I remember her driving me and us around when we were 17 and 18 and going to Cap. And we, in first year, in my 1 year there, and in the first of her years en route to graduation, she and I had this situation that we ended up calling Terrible Tuesdays, which started with the 8:30 class.
Oof.
I don't remember what it was. I think it was the history class as
the
opposed
8 a.m.
to the
history.
Yeah.
Oof.
So we were rolling out of New West at 7 something, right, to get to that class. And then we were on campus all day until, not with solid classes, like there's that lunch break that everybody would seem to have, and there were other things, but we'd be on campus until 4:30 or 5 would be each of us's last class, maybe 5. And then we would kind of pack up and get out of there by 5:30, and then we would come home to New West, maybe if we had time to go to our families' homes and eat dinner or whatever. But then we had this New West community band at
Yes.
7 p.m. that rehearsed up in the band room of our high school here at New Westminster Secondary School on Tuesdays. And so then we wouldn't be done until like 9 p.m.
Oh my
or
gosh.
something. And I met, and Brent's son went to high school with us.
Yeah.
But I met Brent Taylor through playing in that band. Yeah.
He's the best. He's so good. Yeah, I went to his high school, or like the high school that he was teaching at.
Yeah.
And at the time that I joined, I think they were going through like a bit of a music program renaissance, which was very cool. They just had gotten her name is Miss Bone now, Taylor Bone, used to be
Okay.
Taylor Collishaw. And she basically took this choral program from like maybe one choir and turned it into like a senior choir, a junior choir, chamber choir, vocal jazz, on timetable and off timetable.
Awesome.
For all those like different choirs, and like it expanded into like over like 100 kids or something in that choral program. It was really insane. And then we had Brent Taylor, we had Stephen Fleming, both fantastic educators. And, you know, I was in the music program because I like to sing. It's nice, I think.
Yeah.
I actually didn't really, like, singing wasn't always, like, I don't know, at the forefront of my mind when I was at that age. I actually was really, believe it or not, kids at home, I was really into, like, the drama program at my school. I did a lot of improv acting, and like did their like little theater program there, and there came a point where I was like in grade 10 where I had to choose between the two programs, and I could tell the teachers were like, which one is she gonna choose, what's it gonna be, and I ended up kind of leaning towards music. It's just how it happened, but I think it could have happened either way depending on what high school I went to, right? Because we had such a strong jazz program at Point Grey, and I put on my little trombone in the A band and the B band, and I remember one day Amber sang, and she was like, "Hey, you should join combo. It's so much fun." And neither of us really knew what combo meant, but
She was playing trumpet probably, right?
she was playing trumpet and singing.
And
yeah.
singing, yeah.
You should join combo. It's super fun. You should do it. And I was like, okay, yeah, sure. As long as I don't have to like solo or something, which is the whole point of combo, basically,
Yeah.
is to solo. But I ended up doing it, and I had a lot of fun, and I did it for the next like couple years, and that kind of pushed me to do more solo singing, because at the time I was doing a lot of choir. And then like Brent, he let me like sing with the big band, like a couple like vocal charts. And that was like a very life-changing thing for me too, because like not every like 17-year-old gets to sing with a big band.
What were the songs?
I did Mac the Knife.
Nice.
People at home, do not look it up on the internet.
The actual performance is available somewhere, maybe.
It's available on YouTube. I did Mac the Knife, and I did what was the other one? This The Man I Love.
Oh, cool.
I think those were the two I did.
Nice.
Yeah, and like singing with a big band. Whoa, what an experience. So much fun. But that kind of was what was my introduction to jazz, was that program. And being in the big band, first of all, that was what really got me into it. It was big band music, Duke Ellington, and then kind of when we got into combo, started listening to like Oscar Peterson. My first love, and will always be my true love Oscar Peterson so much. And then found out that there was a program at Cap, and then I was like, well, might as well just try it out, and I did, and the rest, well, I did the program, so I finished it.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, that's and when you were in combo there at Point Grey, were you still playing both trombone and vocals in that combo, or did you go in as a singer into the combo situation and have your first kind of small group experience strictly as a singer?
I mostly did it as a singer.
Nice.
I think sometimes I brought out the trombone, but trombone's never been like... Trombone's something I prefer to play in a big band more than anything. I like reading charts, and I don't... I mean, I did pull it out at the Lido a few months ago, and that was really fun. And I was like, ooh, if I actually practice this instrument, this could be really fun to jam on.
That's exactly where I was going with that.
You were like, well, you brought it out the Lido. What's up with that? Well, yeah, for those at home, they had a jam at the Lido, and vocalists weren't allowed to jam. Not because of Tim. Tim loved vocalists. It was something to do with the venue. But I was like, well, I want to jam because I don't want to, like, I feel like I'll be there and I'll just be like, oh, everyone's having so much fun jamming.
Like if you just went with no instrument, yeah.
Yeah, I think I'd just be a little bit bummed. And I was like, well, I want to participate. I have a trombone that I haven't touched in 2 years. Maybe now's the time to do a blues. And then I did, and it was really fun. And I, there's a certain joy, I think, about, rolling up to a jam and having no expectation of, like, this is an instrument that everyone knows, like, that I'm obviously not known for. So there was a little bit of joy in that, I think, for sure, of, like, no expectation. I can play whatever I want. It could be bad and no one would be mad at me because nobody knows,
Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking. I was like, this is a really good example of you escaping some kind of pressure that maybe some people feel.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to say exactly where it comes from or what, but the feeling that you got to just by doing that, it seems very chill in a really good way, and something that you would want to search for, even if you are playing just on your main instrument at a gig, like some kind of relaxed feeling where you're getting away from some feeling that you might worry about sometimes, where you might worry that you're not going to play well enough or that something's going to go wrong. And yeah, I don't know. I thought that, well, that whole night, the first annual Infidels jam session at the Lido to benefit the Vancouver Food Bank, that was a great night. But that moment is a good example of escaping some kind of bad pressure,
Absolutely. I would completely agree. Like, all of us know what it's like. I mean, all of us musicians know what it's like to go up to a jam and you're waiting for your turn and you're like, fuck, like, should I just cross my name off the list? Like, what do I do? But yeah, like, I was still nervous because there was a ton of people there, but it was so busy and so, like, I feel like it was almost the perfect, like, jam situation because it's like people are talking, they're like, they're listening, it's a listening room, but they're not, like, there's still people talking and there's still, like, background noise, so you don't feel as much pressure on yourself to perform because you're just playing instruments together and everyone, someone else's turn will be next in like 10 minutes, right? But yeah, that was cool. I definitely I have been thinking about, like, maybe going to more jams with the old trombone.
Yeah, no, that was cool to see. And you played your own gig at the Lido. It was a little bit ago now, like it was this past spring when that series was just getting going. I think you were one of the first people to do it, and you didn't have your exact quartet that you're rolling out now at Frankie's and that you played with at Jazz at the Bolt. Like, I think you had Matt Franceschini on guitar and Colin Zacharias on the bass, right? And then who else?
And Seth on the drums.
And Seth still on the drums. Okay,
but
nice, yeah.
That actually ended up not happening.
Oh, really?
Because it was during it was actually the Lido and then shortly after my grad recital, and I got COVID.
Oh,
wow. Really last minute, like the day before I got COVID. And then the show still went on. That's probably why you think it still went on. Is because they just did trio instead.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But you were going to play with them. And that was probably really, like, you're talking about you were doing your grad recital at the same time. That was really an example of who you had been playing with at Cap, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Matt Franceschini and Colin Zacharias, two of my closest friends that I met at Cap, we kind of have like you've talked to Matt before. Yes.
Yeah, he hasn't been on the show, but I've heard him a couple times. Yeah.
Oh, no way. I totally thought he'd been on. He must have been on it. That guy's everywhere.
We got to pull it out of your memory and like just download it onto the show. Like ChatGPT will write up a version of my episode with Matt.
Yeah, it definitely happened.
Just like your show at the Lido.
Yeah, just like my show at the Lido. It definitely happened. I was bummed because that probably would have been the only vocal performance there that would have happened. So yeah, I got really sick and I couldn't do it. Sad. But yeah, Matt and Colin, that was gonna be one. I can't remember the last
time you played with them, or
actually one of the last times we did a gig was we have this little quintet. It's called we're calling it Mountain Highway, and it's we're actually releasing an EP. We're planning on releasing an EP in May. I think it's gonna happen. But we basically we recorded 3 EPs of all original music in my friend Jay. Some people might know him as Justice. He goes by Jay but it's like same. But my friend Jay, we recorded it in his garage in Parksville, like in his mom's garage in Parksville. And we recorded it over the course of a week, 3 EPs, because there's too much music for one album. So we had to split it up into 3 EPs.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm so excited to hear this when the time is right. I love this.
Yeah, it's really weird. It's so it's myself, Matt Franceschini. Shit, I always mess it up. But anyways, sorry, Matt, if you're listening to this. Colin Zacharias, Jay Cote, and Julian Burkowski. All some of my dearest friends from Cap, and definitely lifelong friends as well. It kind of started off as like a combo thing, you know. It's like, ooh, we get all our friends together in a combo, and then it turned into like some serious music making, and so a lot of like collaboration on music that we've written, and everyone has written every single one of us has at least one song on there that we've written, if not have collaborated on.
So there's like a composition that is credited to you and you brought it in, and there's like one to Julian and he brought it in, etc. kind of thing, right?
Yeah. I think there's more that I think it's mostly from Jay, Colin, and Julian. No. I think it's Jay, Julian, and Matt that have written the most composition.
Across like everything you recorded kind of thing?
Yeah, across everything we've recorded. But yeah, we have like 3 EPs. They're all like kind of themed. And it's gonna be really cool. I think it's gonna be a sound that I don't think anyone in the city has ever heard me do before. So that's really exciting. Very not straight ahead.
Nice. And so you've thought a little bit about how you want to deploy that. Does that mean you're going to eventually be releasing all that stuff and you've just identified like the first chapter to come out as like the first EP at some point, maybe like this spring or whenever it ends up being, and then the other 2 would come later?
Yeah, I think what I was pitching was, well, because we're all in different cities now, right?
Yeah.
Julian's in Eugene, Oregon, and the other 3 are in Montreal. And we tried to line it up this summer, but it just wasn't working, the dates. And we were like, that's fine. Like, we'll just release our EP. Cool. And then we're hoping that we'll release the last EP in the winter and hopefully maybe line up a show in Vancouver for that. I think would be really, really fun. But yeah, we'll see what happens.
Yeah, because you want to make the most of the release attention at some point, I guess, because you think about, I don't know, I spend every week nerding out about this stuff for a living because I have my day job and I have to think about it with my artist stuff. So I personally, I always really enjoy geeking out about the release timelines and the rollouts and the promotion and lining it up with shows and things like that. I know not everybody enjoys that. Like, where are you on that spectrum when you think about that part of the equation, right? Which isn't necessarily something that you do at CAP or that you learn about at school, but when you want to put out music, you kind of have to decide how you feel about it, right? You're like, oh, I just want to get it out there and see what happens and enjoy it. And or you could like think more about it. Like, do you enjoy thinking about that stuff, or is it kind of something you could do without?
I think I like thinking about it, but at the same time, I think the fact that we're all in different cities and it's not just like, oh, it's me doing a duo album and we're in different cities, so we can like, I could fly over. It's like 5 different people's schedules we have to work around, and just because of that aspect of like, well, we can't really line up a show. And I just found out like the other day that we can't, there's no way we can line up a show in Vancouver, at least. It's kind of taken away that like, well, if we promote it and stuff, we can't really hype it up with like a show or like a album release show or something, which is really cool. I love the aspect of like album release shows. I think that's so much fun. But yeah, I haven't super gotten into that because, I mean, as you probably have noticed, I don't really have anything out. So
yeah, because I was going to say, well, there's also like the online side you could think about, like in terms of which platforms you're putting it out on, how much you care about each of those platforms, how you feel about them. Like that could be something that stresses some people out, or it could be something that they kind of get excited about and interested in, right?
Matt is like the most organized person I've ever met in my life, and he just was immediately like, yeah, we'll do it on here, and here, and well, yeah, and then we're done. And I'm like, oh, thank God. Okay, Matt nice. Has his stuff figured out. I didn't really have to think much about it.
And that was good for you. You were happy about that.
I was happy about that. But also like, Matt is such an independent and hardworking individual, and he's already got an album out, and I'm very grateful for his knowledge and expertise on all of that stuff, because I feel like, and he also recorded the whole thing, the EP, and he recorded it and he's mixing it and he's mastering it. So I am Matt Francini. I'm sorry for mispronouncing your name. If you're listening to this, I love you and I appreciate you.
Yeah, it was cool to hear him play duo guitar with Ollie Gannon too.
Oh my gosh, so much fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now I'm just trying to keep track of all your projects, right? Because you've got your quartet. You had the band that was to play at the Lido, and then which turned into this thing that you recorded, and then you have Winner with the show that also got rescheduled, right? And that you ended up doing in the month of February 2023 at Presentation House, and that's a different kind of repertoire. Who you've got in there? You've got Madeline on guitar, who we mentioned earlier. You've got Sydney Tuff on bass. Who else is in that band?
Tess Meckling on piano, and we've got Kate Johnson on drums.
Nice.
What a fun group. I love that group. I go into those rehearsals and I feel like, end of a long day, and I come out of those rehearsals feeling so good. Just like such a wonderful group of talented, humble, and kind individuals that I find so wonderful to be around. But yeah, I honestly just wanted to do a show that was like a tribute to women in music. I thought that would be really cool. Then Tim suddenly was like, I'm doing this series, the Expression Sessions, where you can do whatever you want.
At Presentation
House. And I was like, careful what you wish for. And so now I'm doing this kind of just like this poppy night at Presentation House, which has not been done very often, I don't think. But it's going to be a ton of fun. We're doing, we're trying to span like, well, I'm the band leader, so I've tried to span a bunch of different genres and a bunch of different artists, new and old. And so we're doing like Shania Twain. We're doing Fiona Apple. We're doing Fiona Apple tune. We're doing a Phoebe Bridgers tune, but we're also doing like like a Dolly Parton one.
So it's kind of a singer-songwriter through line, but you got a bunch of different sounds that you're kind of collecting and putting into your arrangements.
Yeah, basically. And and there's like a couple arrangements, but it's nothing too crazy. It's just us like celebrating women in music and having fun, and the joy in that. And I wanted to have an all-female group because I just don't see that a ton in Vancouver. I see that's actually I've been noticing that quite a bit in the indie scene. There's a couple of cool looking all-female groups or all-female identifying, and obviously, oh my gosh, obviously the leading ladies and the Sister Jazz, but there's not like a ton of like just like casually female identifying groups, and I just thought it'd be cool. And I was like, well, there's all these wonderful women that I want to work with. Why not do a little quintet of us all having the time of our lives?
Yeah, I don't want to jinx it because we still got to produce these episodes. I work on another podcast called Pacific Sound Radio that deals in the indie rock scene and stuff as opposed to jazz. And I'm not the host, but I co-produce the show with my friend who is the host. And 2 of our upcoming episodes, one of which should be recorded and done by the time this episode comes out, is with the band Babe Corner, and another one's with another band called Wrong, RONG, and those are both groups that you might have been thinking of, but were there others that came to your mind when you mentioned like all female groups?
Yeah, I think Babe Corner was one. There was Club Sofa, but they haven't done a ton of stuff lately.
Yes.
They're super cool. I think the biggest one I was thinking of was Babe Corner. And there's also it's one of those UBC bands, and I can't remember the name anymore.
Like a group of people who met at UBC?
Yeah, there's like a bit of I've realized that there's a little bit of a music community up at UBC. It's just and so like it's usually people like just made up of UBC students, and they have like a whole like kind of like indie band culture and they all know each other and they all play together. That's just something I've noticed from the outside looking in. But I know there's one that's I think it's Cat TV.
Yeah.
They're a all-female band. From what I've seen. I think that's it.
But there's some that you can identify and look towards. Yeah,
absolutely.
As you're doing this thing. Yeah, that's good.
And I think that's really cool. It's very empowering, and it's not to hate on my male friends out there. I have so many wonderful man friends, but it is a different energy in that rehearsal space. It's a different energy, and it's so easy to feel like comfortable and safe and accepted, and like any sort of critique is like a genuine want for like you to do better. It's never coded. It's never, that's what I've found in those rehearsals that we've had, and it's been like just so easy, which I love. I think it's going to be really cool, and hopefully that band turns into like some original compositions. I want to try to do like kind of like Guilt & Co stuff with that, and other like kind of like poppy venues. I think would be so much fun.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say, is like after the presentation I'll show, like where you take that is you would take it out to some of those other kind of venues from that indie scene probably, right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And like, yeah, Prez House I know is not like a pop venue, but like I thought it would be cool. I thought it would be fun to do, like, it's like brand new band. Why not? Let's do a show at Prez House and hang out and have fun and drink some tea and cookies.
Yeah.
Eat some cookies. But yeah, I'm hoping this band will turn into, fingers crossed, but I'm hoping that this band will turn into some like cool fun summer gigs, and maybe some original music as well.
We'll get back to our conversation with Teresa in just a second, but first, I want to tell you about the subscriber drive I'm doing at Rhythm Changes. That's with the Update subscription, where subscribers get exclusive writing from me on Fridays and support the whole operation here, really make it possible. I'm giving you a 25% off discount if you go to rhythmchanges.ca/update. I'm on a mission to welcome 50 new subscribers as we get into the spring of 2023 here. So go to rhythmchanges.ca/update and become a subscriber to the Update today. That's rhythmchanges.ca/update. So you've got a couple of these projects that you've been hitting that you're going to be rolling with going forward, because you've been playing with the Quartet, you're playing with Winner Winner. The summer you'll have an opportunity to get out there a bit more. I know you've also played like duo gigs with Ben Millman in the past, right? And you've done that kind of thing too. Is that something you did more when you were coming up, or are you still doing that?
Yeah, I've been doing a ton of duo gigs actually, especially when I was playing a lot at the Christmas market. That's a lot of like duo vibes. I've been playing a lot with like Ben Millman, Patrick Cow, Chris Fraser. I did one with Maddie Elkins, all fantastic musicians. I actually have a duo gig this week, Valentine's Day, with Chris Fraser, and that'll be really fun.
Nice.
And I'm actually doing a So Far gig, which is kind of fun.
You've done it before?
Yeah, I have. I did.
Oh, nice.
I actually subbed out really last minute for Shruti, and I was really panicked because I know So Far is like kind of like a singer-songwriter vibe. So I was like, well, I don't have anything I'm comfortable like, sharing yet, right? So what I turned it into was kind of a Jazz 101 lesson for the audience, and it went really well.
So what did that entail? What did you do?
I was just like, I got up there and I was like, okay, guys, I'm going to be real with you. Who here listens to jazz? And like maybe like
a couple hands.
Yeah, a couple of people were like, woo, yeah. And I was like, okay, we're going to play some jazz for you tonight. We're going to do what we call a jazz standard. Does anyone know what a jazz standard is? It's like silent, obviously. And I go, it's like doing a cover. You do a cover of Valerie. It's like that, but the song's really old. And everyone does it. And it's all these really old songs. And I was like, I'm going to do this thing where I go do-ba-do-be, ba-boo-da. And that's me improvising on the spot. Okay. It's not just like, made up shit that I'm doing. And they really liked it.
Yeah.
Which was cool. It's something I've been talking about recently is, the accessibility of jazz, right? I think that jazz music can be a little bit intimidating for people who have never listened to it before. They don't know where to go. And I think, why not? Why not do a little Jazz 101 for So Far and and teach people like that it's not that scary and that there's so much more to it than just this like noise, right? Because there's so many subgenres and there's so many nuances and there's different albums. Like everyone thinks that, I feel like so many outsiders think that jazz is one thing and it's this big scary thing with saxophones.
Oh yeah.
Fair enough. Saxophones are pretty scary. But like it does make me sad when I hear people say like, no, I don't like jazz, it's too dense or it's too whatever. And I'm like, there are 20 albums I could list for you right now that are not that. It's just that you have this preconceived notion that like jazz is this untouchable thing when it's not. It's a joyful thing, and it's something that can be incredibly accessible if you have the right person to show you what it is.
And to like bring, there are shows here that you could go to that if you thought that jazz was intimidating in the abstract, that you went to those shows and you would have a lot of fun and it would be really entertaining and you wouldn't know it unless you had somebody to pick them out kind of for you, right?
Guys, go to the Dusty Cabaret Tuesdays. That swing dancing hits hard. You know what I mean? It's so much fun. It's so much fun. And it's like people don't know that stuff goes on like that here. And that's why we're so grateful for things like the gig list, right? It's like a place. I've pointed so many people to that.
Thank you.
To the Rhythm Changes gig list, because it's like they're like, I don't know where to go, Vancouver jazz. I'm like, look at this gig list. There's everything on there. Everything.
Thank you. Yeah, it's funny how we got to pick it up basically as soon as possible after New Dadoon was doing it on the long-running VancouverJazz.com website that kept doing it while I was at Cap, etc. And we just kind of put it up in our own style and kind of got his endorsement of like, okay, you're doing it now. Great. I'm really happy that you're doing it now because somebody's doing it and
Nice.
I can't do it anymore. So that was a nice little transition. And I'm the first and best user of it as well. I appreciate that it exists. So I try to make sure it's helpful to some people. I actually had my little story on that, on bringing people out via the gig list was I played talking about album release shows. I played one at the Frankie's Late Show in November with my trio, and I had somebody come to that show who I hadn't seen in literally half my lifetime. I hadn't seen in 15 years. Because when we were teenagers, I used to go to his basement with my bass and my amp and my like construction earmuffs and jam metal music with him and his other friends. And we had not been in touch whatsoever since then. But he's not even a metal guitarist now. I don't know what he's gotten into in his day job or whatever, but he said that in his musical life now he's more of like a producer of like EDM or dance music. But so he changed genres and cut his long metal hair and stuff. But he said that he and his friend were like maybe a little bit high and in town already and had just eaten. They wanted to go see some music and they decided that they wanted to go see jazz. And so then they Googled that and then they found the page. And then he recognized my name from 15 years ago and he showed up to my Frankie's gig.
Oh my gosh.
And I wouldn't have known unless he introduced himself to me. But that was wild. Like I was not expecting that.
I love that. I love the little Vancouver small town. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Vancouver's not a small town, but it kind of is a little bit of like, you never know. You're going to run into someone from elementary school, like downtown, and you're like, what is happening? Yeah. But I love that. That is so great.
Because you brought up the gig list, I would be remiss if I didn't ask, because I don't often get a chance to like air feedback about it and then be able to learn from it. But it's like I've been trying to learn from it as quickly as I could, especially in the first couple months when it was just starting and like we were trying to learn how to put together Rory Hislop and getting the info from the venues and what he was doing and what I was doing. And like as a user of it, like, is there anything that you think could improve about it? Or is there some other kind of similar thing that needs to be done? Because like, to be honest, I've kind of, in that arena of things, I've had my blinders on of like looking at the list and figuring out how to get it done every month.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe I'm missing the chance to like do something else that would be helpful. So any feedback or reactions you have to it at all, I always appreciate it. But if you got them right now, that'd be super, super cool.
Not at the moment. I loved when you introduced the when you were crossing the stuff out, because that wasn't always that wasn't
That's
the
right.
thing in the beginning. I loved that, and I actually do like that you leave the old gigs up, because I think I mentioned to you this, I DM'd this to you on Instagram, like I do like seeing the gigs I miss, because I'm like, oh shit, I missed such a good gig. I better like, and then you keep an eye out, right, for that group. Oh, I didn't know that group was even a thing. Or I didn't even know that like they were doing music at this venue. So I think it's great.
So there's a couple of reasons why I do that. One of them is just on the boring technical side. The longer the page is and the more names it contains, the better it shows up in search results. And so I can keep the page the maximum length by just keeping all the gigs up there for the entire month. The other reason is because whenever I've covered somebody, I link through to my coverage of them off the list. So like after this episode is live, every time your name is on the list, it will link to this podcast episode.
No way.
So that if somebody sees your name on the list and they don't know who you are, for some reason they want to click on that link, they will find this whole conversation kind of thing. And that's the case for not just the podcast, but all the articles. Like Connor, after I did an article about him in advance of Jazz at the Bolt, every time his name is on the list, it's linked through. And so I just kind of accumulate more content to link through under everybody's name for people who see somebody's name and they want to learn about them, right? And so if I leave the old gigs up, then I'm leaving those links up as well. So if they see the person's name, then they can click on them and learn more.
Oh, that's sick. I think that's a great reason to leave all those names up for sure.
So it's almost like I could just focus on the one thing of, as long as I'm like increasing the number of link throughs names I have, I'm doing the right thing, right?
Yeah,
like over time it'll just grow.
All be links, yeah.
Yeah. And of course I tell people who are younger than us, of course, but everybody I tell, like, I think about what the amount of gigs was like 10 years ago, and there's so much more going on now than there was back then. And I definitely bring that up to people to kind of to continue being excited about it. They are, but like, especially like this is the most in my relatively short number of years that I've ever seen happening, like the most gigs at the most places and new things getting started like multiple times a year. There's new venues, new series coming online. Like Whedon did not used to have that. No way. So
yeah,
it's pretty special. I feel
like a lot of that, obviously there's so many other promoters that are fantastic, especially like, Sherry Minamoto starting that new thing at La Fabrique, which I haven't had a chance to go to yet. But I've heard is a great venue. But Tim Raynor, let's get the elephant out of the room. Tim Raynor, the Renaissance king of Vancouver jazz. I actually, when Tim booked me for that Lido gig, I don't think we had met in person.
Mm-hmm.
He had so much trust in me. And I think it's because that little Matt Franciscini put a little bug in his ear about me, which is very sweet. I do want to say Matt Franciscini has been one of the biggest reasons I gig. He was the person who called me for my first gig. He's the person who's pushed me to do gigs. He's been a very incredible force in my life of making me think I could do it, which is really cool.
Yeah.
But he's the reason that, Tim knew about me, and I guess he had shown Tim some videos, and Tim was like, "Do you want to do this gig at the Lido?" And I was like, "Yeah, who are you?" Just kidding. I knew who he was, but
So I guess you didn't show him the Mac the Knife video from.
I didn't show him the Mac the Knife video. I should have. But yeah, Tim has been such a strong force in the jazz community as of late, and especially for young players, up and coming players, and it is so cool to see the work that he's done in the city, for sure. And they just started the New Thing series again at Tyrant. He's every time I talk to him, he's like, "Yeah, there's something in the works." I'm like, what else could possibly be go take a bath. What could possibly be in the works? You're crazy. He's all over the place, and it's incredible. It's quite remarkable to watch this man just rise from the ashes, and all these different venues are popping up, and I'm like, what's happening? But it's really cool for sure.
It was not something that had been done before. We didn't have that kind of energy of there always being a new thing being started, right? That's a new thing as far as I ever saw it. There was a period of time from 2013, 14, which was right around the time I left Cap and started playing professionally. There was a period of time there when not only was there no active jazz club being booked by Corey Weeds, he had closed the Cellar and Frankie's hadn't started yet. So there was no Corey Weeds Jazz Club. There was no Tangent. There was no Tyrant for several years after that. But all these kind of main places that you'd think of now, none of them were active. And and there were these little spots where we would play, and the scene of improvisers still kind of had their spots, and that was kind of a prevailing thing that our older friends in the Cap scene were really into. But there was a time when a bunch of venues kind of sunset and the other ones hadn't started coming up yet, and that I didn't realize that that was the time that I became an adult going into, but it was. And so it's been so cool like to see it ride upwards since then, where like that was you look back and like that was a dip for sure, and I can see that it was a dip now, but I didn't know back then.
Holy cow. I can't imagine. A world with no Tangent Cafe? Don't want to live in it.
Yeah. I turned 19 years old right around the time the Tangent Cafe became a thing. So it's great timing for me, and I spent a few years really, really hitting that place hard.
Good food there. Great food there.
Yeah.
A world with no Frankie's? Oh.
Yeah, I mean, Frankie's was like when that started, that was a big deal because the Corey Weeds' cellar was in Kitts, like close to where you went to high school, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, going out there, it was a bit of a trek for a lot of us, and I still managed to get out there to see my favorite shows that I heard coming up. But going to Frankie's and getting that bigger space, so much better location, and like not having to be the owner of the restaurant for Corey, like that was a huge deal when that started.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
That guy's also one of a driving force. Thank goodness for Corey Weeds, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. It's my experience with him was funny. Like I became friends with him only over the past year. I didn't know him really when I was younger and coming up, and I think that's probably true of a lot of people. Like you see him everywhere and you don't really know him, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think he's always kind of like, you know, he's so busy and he's always doing shit. I get it. At first when I was like a younger cat, I was like, who is that guy? What's happening? And now that I'm like out of Cap and I'm like going to shows again and it's not COVID-19 anymore, kind of, like I have definitely a newfound appreciation for him and what he does for the scene. And he's been incredibly supportive as well, like booking me for this
at Frankie's.
Frankie's, and it's and to see the joy he has in creating a music scene here, with Jazz at the Bolt. That is insane amount of, I can't even imagine the work that goes into an event like that, like constant jazz for 8 hours, like and to make sure everyone gets paid, and to merge tables and organizing it, and volunteers. Like it takes so much, and he's put a lot into that, which is really, really cool. Yeah, it's we have some good people in this city doing good stuff.
Yeah, I think the two of them know it, and that's why they do the things that they do. But I think like Corey and Tim look better by each other being at each other's side, like because they're so different. I think they complement each other well, and you like appreciate more things about one of them because the other one is also there, and you can clearly see like how different they are.
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree. They're very, despite their online feud, they are very complementary to each other, I think.
Yeah, because I'll message them both like most days. Like most days I will message with one or both of them, and I the contrast is very clear in my mind, but I do appreciate them more each for being who they are.
Mm-hmm, absolutely.
Yeah. It's funny because then you think like they're from around a similar age. I mean, Tim came from another part of BC originally in terms of like where he grew up and stuff. So it's not like they go way back personally, but you think about like who from our generation, and I really mean it in a broader way, like a generation of 18 to 20 years or so, like more than just these kind of little cohorts that when we're all younger, you feel like there's big differences, but then over time they kind of evaporate. Like who knows, right? Like who are going to be the people in like 20 years time who have stuck around and built something like either of them have, right? Like it's going to be, we don't know who they are, but we can't identify who the individuals are, but we know they're going to be people that we know.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, it takes so much organization, right? I feel like someone who comes to mind for me, Casey Thomas Burns.
Yeah.
She is a force to be reckoned with.
Absolutely.
She gets things done. I can imagine her being in one of those positions for sure in like 10, 15 years. Like, absolutely. She
Yeah.
is so organized. I love her.
Same, yeah. Talking about, and she worked on Jazz at the Bolt too.
Yeah, she did.
So some people, they go and they're teachers, and that's a huge role. And if you're a performing musician in our scene, a lot of them are teachers, whether that's lessons teachers or teaching in schools after you go and do the teacher program at UBC or something like that. And some people have non-music day jobs or non-local day jobs. Like I have a music day job, but it's not a local one. So there's that kind of thing, and people find their right way to participate. And some people go to a different city, right? But like you're at an interesting point on that right now where you got some space to think about that a little bit. Like where are you at when you think about it today on that question? Like what feels like the role that you're going to want to play, and if you're staying here, like, and you're dreaming up like what you want there in terms of lifestyle and what you're doing, like which way you feel like that's going to go when you look at it right now.
I definitely don't think I'm going to go into like any sort of full-time teaching thing. I don't think that's my calling.
Yeah, me neither.
I respect the hell out of people who can do that for
Same.
sure. Right now I actually technically am doing I say 2.5 jobs to people. I'm a server.
Yeah.
I'm a breakfast server, and I teach privately. Technically, I teach at Horizon School of Music.
Great. Yeah, Chris has known me since I was pretty young.
Oh my gosh, that's so funny.
Yeah.
Small world. And they're fantastic. I do that like 2 days a week, and then I try to fill up the rest of my time with gigs. And gigs is the half part, because it's like, you know, they come and go, right?
Mm-hmm.
I am hoping, my dream is to be able to gig full time.
Mm-hmm.
This sounds like very like, I don't know, maybe kind of mushy, but like when I was in high school, like I've always been like a very indecisive person. I don't like making huge decisions, especially like it takes me a long time to make a big life decision. When I was quitting JJ Bean, oh my god, it took me a year to do that. I was like, for a year, every time my friends would be like, did you quit JJ Bean yet? I'm like, no, I don't know why. I can't.
Oh.
I can't leave. It takes me a while to make those big decisions. But there's one thing that I've like always been sure about, and it's the fact that like I'm like, I think I need to be able to perform full time. I think that's just something that I need to somehow make happen, which I know sounds like, you know, whoever's listening to this is probably like, oh, classic. But I'm just, you know, I don't know. I think it's something I feel very, very passionate about and very strongly about. And I don't think of other things.
Okay.
But that is kind of and it's why I've started picking up guitar, taking some lessons from a couple pals, and I'm trying to do some solo gigs by the summer. That's kind of my goal.
Cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so what are you going to do there? Are you going to do cover songs? Are you going to do a little bit of jazz standards? What are you going to do when you play solo, accompanying yourself on guitar?
I'm hoping to do like singer-songwriter, maybe some jazz standards if I can do it, but mostly like singer-songwriter covers, and hopefully original music.
Oh, so you are gonna? I was gonna say, are you gonna? Do you already write music that sounds like that, or maybe you're gonna, or something? Yeah.
Yeah, I write a little bit. I did perform like 3 originals at Jazz at the Bolt. I did and half of my rep ends up being just like poetry that I don't want to put to melody. So there's one I do called The First of Lasts, and it's about this very specific moment of it was after the final grad recital, and we all went to my friend Colin's house at this like, he had this bonfire in his backyard, and he knew he was moving out soon, so it would have been our last bonfire we could do that was legal. And we were doing this bonfire, and my friend Julian, he's like sitting next to me, and he's kind of silent, and I'm like, what's going on, Julian? What's going on? And he looks at me and he goes, "This is the first of last. This is the first of a bunch of last things I'm going to do in Vancouver before I move away. This is the last time we'll be able to be in this group of people specifically, in this location specifically. We're not going to do this again in our lives." And then that just got me thinking about what other lasts are going to be here before I move away and everyone starts, getting up and going somewhere or living their lives. And I thought that was an interesting sentiment. I liked how that sounded a lot. The first of lasts. So I wrote this poem based off that for him, and then I ended up putting it to music. And I think it ended up kind of cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's kind of been the vibe of my my compositions so far. Have been kind of like poetry to music. And yeah, there's some stuff in the works, but nothing too crazy yet.
Talk about performing full time, and that's an open-ended word that you could define what that means for yourself in terms of what does full time mean. Are there specific people who are doing that right now who you look up to in particular?
Whoa. I mean, there's definitely like instrumentalists that do. Chris Fraser, Wynston Minckler. I think Dean does some church gigs, but
Well, that's performing.
That is performing, you're right.
Maybe they're local, maybe they're not. Those are all good local ones.
It's true.
Yeah.
It's hard finding it's hard to think of singers right now that are able to do that, because the thing with instrumentalists is that you can, as long as you're open to genres, you could gig like a machine, especially if you're like a bass player or especially if you're a bass player that can do multiple genres. I feel like you're in the money, and you're good at it. And if you're good at it, but I'm trying to think of singer-songwriters that aren't just like famous, like straight famous. No one really comes to mind at the moment, but I also haven't really been in the singer-songwriter scene. Whoa, alliteration. That like here in Vancouver. So I don't super have anyone that comes to mind.
Is that a group of people who will have their own kind of venues and spots and certain personalities who are people where if you get to know them, then you'll meet a lot of other people? Is that like a community that you're wanting to step into more, like going into this summer and going into the coming years?
Yeah, absolutely. I think so. I think I love jazz, but I also want to be a versatile musician, and I don't want to be just a jazz singer. I want to be a singer. But don't get me wrong. I freaking love jazz music. But it is like, yeah, singer-songwriter stuff I definitely want to get more into, because there are so many like talented artists here. I've seen little glimpses of, but yeah.
Yeah, and then there's once you get into that scene too, I'm sure you'll find that you're already well equipped in so many ways to be a part of it, like because you have your technical background like as a singer and your understanding of harmony and songwriting, etc. Like you have a lot of those tools, and it's almost like it's just a matter of what's your version of getting into the car with Ben, or like showing up and playing with Matt and Colin. Like what's your version of that you're going to be able to access in the broader Vancouver indie scene or something. And like if you start poking into it enough times, you'll have something like that, and who knows where it'll take you, right? You can't predict it now.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
I'm excited. There's a lot of unknowns this upcoming year, There's a lot of like, I don't know what I will have done by this time next year. I don't know. A couple of my friends are trying to convince me to move to Montreal, but there's a lot happening in Vancouver right now. I'm I feel pretty grounded here. But who knows? Who knows what might happen?
Yeah. Yeah, I guess the last thing I wanted to ask you about for fun was because now we're talking about places, and like I know you went on a trip to Europe, right? Is there anything you want to relay from that? How was that?
Oh my gosh. Oh, so good. It was my first solo trip, and I just had the time of my life. It was like just going into random restaurants and eating some of the best food I've ever had. Some of the best Italian food I've ever had for so cheap. And the gelato was insane. Actually, I had an opportunity. I found a jazz club in Florence, and I went, and then I saw there was an open mic. And I was supposed to meet up with Ben in what they call the Cinque Terre. It's like these 5 cities on the water. We were both doing our separate solo trips, and we would meet there. And then I looked at his stories on Instagram, and I was like, shit, he's jamming. And I was like, well, I can't just...
Oh.
I don't want to just meet him and not have jammed. Now I feel like I should be jamming. Like, because it wasn't supposed to be like a music trip. It was just a trip that I was doing. And so I went to this jazz club, and I got up and I did this, like, at this funk jam, did a pop tune, and it was great. It was so much fun. And did the same thing in Paris. I got up and I did they were also doing like some sort of funk jam, and I got up there by myself because Ben was sick by the time we were in Paris. I just like went to this random Parisian neighborhood, and I met the nicest couple in the line who was like, they were like around my age, and they were like, yeah, you should get up there. Like, if you want, I can talk to the person, like, and we can make it happen. But it was really cool. Actually, in Paris, it was especially cool because I noticed a lot more of a distinct community there. There was like a older cat who came by and played some of the best funk bass I've ever heard live. Insane. And he came up to me afterwards, and he's like, come to my jam tomorrow. And I was like, well, I'm leaving like tonight. Like, I'm leaving like tomorrow morning. But they have jams in Paris. They have jams like 3 times. Like the time we were there during weekdays, they had like 3 different jams at like 3 different times, like multiple jams, and like jazz jams and funk jams, and like it was so cool. And I was like, I wish I'd spent longer in Paris. We only did like 2 days in Paris. But it was really, really cool to see a bit of community of like someone coming up to me and being like, come to my jam tomorrow. These guys will be there. And I met a couple instrumentalists there that were really cool as well. Thank goodness they spoke English, because my French is not that good. But it was really, really cool to see. And a lot of people told me, they're like, oh, Paris, you're going to get sick and tired of Paris because it's, it's expensive, and people there can be a little bit not as welcoming to tourists.
It's like, come on, bring it on. You know where I grew up, right?
And like when I got there, like all the musicians that I met there were so kind and very welcoming, and I was like, well, now I want to stay for another week and go to all these jams. Like it sounds like the best time ever. So that'll definitely be on the list the next few years, going back to Paris and doing some more jams for sure.
I like that story.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, it was lots of fun, and I actually brought a group from my hostel. I was like, guys, it's like jazz though. It's like a jazz club. And they're like, yeah, absolutely.
Oh, you're
it's
trying to like lower their expectations or something.
Well, I just feel like I said before, like I feel like jazz can be like not so accessible, right? And I was like, I have no idea what it might be. Like, I hope you guys don't think it's boring or something. And we went there, and I think it was a Wayne Shorter tribute, and I was like, okay, cool.
Scary things with saxophones.
Yeah, scary things with saxophones. Once again, those saxophone players coming to haunt me. Just kidding. I love saxophone players. they ended up loving it. Like the whole time they were like, this is the best thing ever. And I was like, this is sick because you are all random people that I have basically met tonight. And you all think this is sick. So this is very cool. And it was like, yeah, very intense instrumental jazz.
Wow.
But it was quite a good show, I will say. But yeah, I felt like a little bit more. It was cool though, because in the jazz club in Florence, there was a lot of people who were on exchange that were there, like a lot of students, and they were just like, oh yeah, we're here like from America, like on exchange, and everyone goes to this jazz club because it's super fun. And I'm like, that's so cool.
Huh.
Like, and there's like lineups. There's lineups outside of the jazz clubs. I'm like, what is this?
Can you imagine people coming to the HI Vancouver hostel and like they all go to Frankie's? Like,
Yeah. They're all lining up outside going to Frankie's. Like,
for the late show now, right? Maybe. You know, it's
Yeah.
possible.
I waited in line. I was like,
Heard about that.
what? That's
Yeah.
crazy.
For Chris Davis, who is also a great interviewer. You know, we didn't really hit on that, but like some people I've had, I was talking to a friend about this last night. Sometimes there's like people who you think are aloof or intimidating or like hard to get to know. And it just so happens that I never got to talk to him. Like Chris Davis was the first Vancouver jazz trumpeter I ever heard. At the first time I ever went to Cellar, he was playing
Wow.
with Corey on one of Corey's album releases that Chris played trumpet on the album. And I never got the chance to talk to him. I always thought he was super cool. And maybe because I thought he was super cool, like I never really talked to him. I didn't get to know him. But then I interviewed him because I wanted to do an article about this show that you went to. And he was great. He was great. He was really nice and open to talk to. And not that I didn't expect it, but it was just like, oh, it's really cool that this person has been here the whole time. And I didn't have a chance to talk to them until now.
Yeah, he seems like a really cool guy. And oh my gosh, what a beautiful show. I love two trumpets all the time. I love it. Double take, Freddie Hubbard, Woody Shaw. They opened with Bird Like, which was really cool. It's a Freddie Hubbard tune for all you listeners out there.
Yeah.
And I just remember like everyone I talked to was just like, what is that tune? I know this tune. What is this tune? Because no one ever really plays that tune. So that was really cool. And then he ended with he's like, oh, I'll just do a quick one. And he did the most beautiful rendition of Hallelujah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And
Okay.
he did it on his own. And then Adam Thomas, which, by the way, what a treat to hear Adam Thomas. I haven't heard him since I was like in Cap, maybe in second year or something. What a treat it is to hear that guy play the bass and to sing. What a wonderful, wonderful musician. And of course, Joe Poole and Brad Turner. Fantastic all-star group. But it was just like the most beautiful and tender version of Hallelujah that Chris played. So beautiful. A great way to end the night. Yeah. Oh, beautiful. Like such a wonderful, wonderful set. And both of them sat down, like both him and Brad sat down at the piano at one point. Both of them played piano and it was super sick. I was shocked because I didn't know Chris Davis played piano. And suddenly I'm like, but Brad's playing. If Brad's playing, then wait.
Well, when that piano's there, yeah, that's perfect.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. Great show. I'm glad I made it out.
And
for
waited
sure.
in line if you had to.
Yeah, waited in line a little bit. I didn't wait in line for that long. They got us in.
You know how sometimes there's an artist out there who you've heard their name so many times, but you feel a little guilty because you've never gone and actually checked out their music.
Mm-hmm.
I want to try something here. If this goes over like a lead balloon, we can delete it for
Okay.
sure. But there's an artist like that who I've never checked out. And if you were willing, I would ask you to explain like I'm 5 and tell me about this artist and what is going on there, because I'm ignorant of it and I still have yet to listen to it. What do you think?
Okay.
Who is Madison Cunningham?
Oh my gosh. Oh, what a joy. The question of the year, who is Madison Cunningham? Why did you post a picture of her as your promo for Winner Winner? First of all, I just thought it would be funny. I just thought it'd be funny to post a little picture of her for people who did know her. She's a singer-songwriter who takes a lot of influence from Jeff Buckley.
Speaking of Hallelujah.
Yeah, speaking of, she is just I discovered her a couple years ago. She has this album called
That's okay.
I can't remember it off the top of my head, but she has this tune on it called Pin It Down, which is like a really standout track for me. And she has a unique voice, a unique timbre to her voice, which I really think is really cool. And some people, flip on and off. Like some people, they listen to it. It's one of those voices you either love it or you hate it. I think not a ton of people that I've talked to hate it, but a couple people are like, I can't get around it. I'm like, respect. But she's just like a very talented singer-songwriter that I am obsessed with. Just the way she writes. She recently released this album called Revealer, and I think most of it is dedicated to her grandma who had just passed away. And she has a song called Life According to Rachel, and it's basically like a song to her grandmother, and it is so powerful and so one of the most like soul-bearing lyrics, like songs with like, and these lyrics together, like so personal and so just like me and Ben were talking about this the other day. Like, I don't think I could cover that song. It is so personal to her, and
makes sense.
So like clearly so special about her grandmother, and it's a beautiful, beautiful tune. Life According to Rachel, very beautiful. But yeah, I think she's just a very talented writer. I went to see her show back in October, right before I went to Italy, and it was and she's just as good live, which I like, even almost even better live, like so good. And I love her sound. I don't know what it is. I'm obsessed. She's just so good. I would definitely recommend, if you listen to her, you should start with Revealer. I think it's a fantastic album. And she's really cool. I met her and she was so nice.
Well, hence the photo, right?
Yeah, true.
Yeah. What did you say to her?
So when she was okay, sorry anyone who's at that show, but who's listening to this, but the crowd was very like a listening crowd, and I really wanted to dance because some of her songs are very like, I think a lot of her songs are very groovy and very fun, and like when I'm at a concert I want to dance. So me and my friend were like dancing in the corner and having the time of our lives. And then she's like, and she gets called out to do an
encore?
Yes, an encore. And it's like dead silent in the room, and usually people are like, like cheering, and they're like, oh, do this song. And it was dead silent.
Like when? Like after she comes back from the curtain call, or like
yeah, after she came out, and she's like thinking about an encore song. And then in the silence I just go, it'd be pretty cool if you did oh my gosh, what song did I ask her to do? I did like a song from her older album. I was like, hey, it'd be pretty cool if you did this song. And then she immediately went into it. And then I talked to her afterwards. I was like, that was me that spoke into the silence. And she was like, oh, it's like you read my mind. That was exactly the song I was thinking about doing. And I was like, that's so cool. And I just basically, I told her, I was like, when I listen to your music, it makes me want to write music. And she said that is the nicest compliment you can give a musician. She was like, that is the like one of the nicest things anyone's ever said. Like, but it's true. Like, I love listening to music that makes me like want to immediately go home and write. Not because I don't want to listen to it, but because I want to write, because it's so inspiring. And that's, I think, some of Madison's music for me, for sure.
Wow. Well, I'm looking forward to not having ever actually listened to it before, to going and listening to it now.
Hey, you know what? There's so much music out there.
There are so many artists you could say that about.
Yeah, you know, sometimes there's artists you don't get to, and then it's so magic when you finally do.
Yeah. I think that's a really lovely place to end it. I had such a fun time. Thank you for coming on the show and for chatting with me.
Thank you so much for having me. I had a great time. I was like, oh, what am I going to talk about? I have nothing to talk about. Just kidding. I'll talk the whole time.
Yeah. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Rhythm Changes podcast. If you liked it, I would encourage you to hop over to Pacific Sound Radio in your podcast app. This is another podcast that I'm co-producing with my friend James Olson. It is about the indie scene in Vancouver and all the genres that you might roll into that. It's the longest running independent music interview podcast in Vancouver. It's awesome to be a part of it. Find Pacific Sound Radio wherever you get your podcasts. Thanks, and I'll catch you next time.